to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome back. It's Wednesday, November 27th here on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined by Matthew Betz and Mike Wright.
I did not see that coming, Mike. Great timing. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Big holiday tomorrow. I know Mike, he just loves Thanksgiving. I mean, that is his day. What's on the schedule, Mike, for tomorrow?
Boys. I don't know. This might it's not locked in yet, but holy crap, guys! So the my family, like my entire my wife, we all kind of feel the same about the holiday of just like it's fine if something's going on with the family whatever. I'll go attend.
Yeah.
I'll go with I should preface this with the family I like, but there could be a bigger family get together on my wife's side, which is like a couple hours away, and she's hemming and hawing about is she going to go? I'm like, absolutely not. I have to work, number one, so I can't afford multiple 2-hour car rides, and so the plan might end up being she's going to go down there. Take my daughter down. So it's going to be me and the boys. Freewheeling, football, Fortnite, Jack in the Box, no responsibilities. Guys, if it happens, this could be the greatest day of my life.
I'm so jealous.
The slow play.
So jealous.
The slow play was nice, and the boys together sounds great. Just,
dude,
barely wearing pants, just hanging out.
Pants? Get out of here,
Kyle. What are you doing for the big turkey day? Is your mom gonna turn around the mashed potatoes this year or what?
For those of you who don't know, my mom makes some crap mashed potatoes. They're terrible. They're just they're bad.
This is an all-time moment, Mike. In case you missed it, which I guess you probably did.
I don't know this.
This is like 4 years ago, Kyle. Right? Like on the DFS show. Randomly, you're just like, "Hey, Betz, you got any favorite Thanksgiving foods?" And I forget what I mentioned at the time, but Kyle was like, my mom makes trash mashed potatoes. You just roast her on the show. So every year I ask Kyle, is it time for Mama Borg to step her game up with mashed potatoes?
You need to talk to Jason because
Tiff makes good mashed potatoes.
Yeah, his wife's mashed potatoes are legendary around here.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. My mom's a great cook, by the way. Really is a great cook.
Just mashed potatoes are the bugaboo.
Yeah, and so she does not make them for Thanksgiving anymore. I had to.
That's for the best.
Yeah, I had to be honest. I get that we want to be loving and kind to the people we love, but
y'all don't have Jack in the Box there down in the South, though, do you?
No, but I love that you started that out with y'all.
I've adopted y'all. I like it.
Kyle loves it. Look at him. I haven't seen Kyle smile this much all season.
I use it in my writing all the time.
I don't even care. Guy for a while, Kyle. Have you not noticed this? Do you have any fast food places that make their employees stay open on Thanksgiving?
Oh, Waffle House is always open, brother.
Yeah, but that's not a drive-through.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really a drive-through guy on Thanksgiving, but I get where you're coming from, Mike.
No, we do the whole thing. We did the old school turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, rolls. The traditional Thanksgiving will be had at the Betz household, which with our family, there is, counting all my siblings, their kids, husbands, wives, aunt, uncle, it's gonna be 26 of us in one house. And I am just so excited. Not really. But really, it's actually kind of a nice setup. Okay. So my kids are young. So we're like, okay, we got to get home for a nap. We got them as an excuse. We got an out. When we get out, I get to sit down for the 4:30 game and then roll right into 8 o'clock game. So I might miss some of the Lions game, which I'm a little bummed about, but overall it shouldn't be.
I might miss it from sleeping in.
It shouldn't be too bad for me.
Oh, man. Yeah, the old school approach is, Betz, you adopt the punt it on fourth down. Mike is more of let's go for it.
Yep.
Kind of the new school approach with stuff. So, no, I respect both. I respect the game. Borganoni's, they've had a lot of kids over the years. My dad was one of 7. My grandpa was one of 13. So we got a lot of people in the Borganonis.
You don't have to do that.
We didn't, but they did. So
different times, Mike.
Anyway, we are glad you're with us on this episode, the 90th episode we've had of the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. So approaching that hundo mark soon. We will be doing a weekly rewind, talking about some players we watched on film, and then looking at a team breakdown. So a couple teams that have regressed or impressed us so far this year, and asking the question of, what is this team? The phrase we use a lot in the Dynasty Pass is a team's ecosystem. So everything to do with this team, their contract situation, we're going to start turning the page here in a couple of months where we start to look at the offseason and everything else. I want us to talk about some of these teams and just say, hey, things have shifted. For instance, we laughed at the Broncos this offseason saying, like, this roster, what are they doing? They're probably going to have, nothing going for them. And here they are, just making every team look terrible, including the Falcons.
Making a playoff push.
He's for real. Like, every week we walk away going like, man, they're for real. So we'll talk about Bo Nix. We'll talk about that team and some other teams. But let's jump in to the rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
Every week, we rewind the film and do a deep dive on a player. And I think this is an opportunity for us to either look at some stat lines and say, okay, what was behind that? What did I actually see? Maybe see some areas of improvement. So, Betz, I will let you go first, a player that we have not been kind about over the last 2 years on this podcast, but looking a little bit better.
Yeah, credit where credit is due. Bryce Young had a very nice game this past weekend against the Chiefs. I mean, Panthers almost upset the Chiefs, which would have been a lot of fun just for NFL storylines. But, Bryce Young, like, obviously we talked about it at length in the offseason. Like, the rookie year was a complete disaster, a complete train wreck. And then kind of when it starts this year, for weeks 1 and 2, again, you saw a lot of the same stuff that you were worried about from the year prior. He gets benched and then he kind of has that time off, comes back. Over the last month, it's not like he's blowing the league out of the water. It's not like he's playing at a top 10 rate, but like, when you look at some of the efficiency numbers as far as like EPA, completion rate, that kind of stuff, it's like right around league average. And I think based off where we thought about Bryce Young even a month ago, 2 months ago, if you told me like Bryce Young's going to turn around his career and be a league average starting quarterback in Dynasty, like, that's huge. Like, he's going to, I think, potentially keep his job moving next year. Now, what he does with it, who knows? This is a small 4-game sample, but when we had the conversation of the Panthers, it's like, okay, this team's going to pick in the top 10 again, probably top 5. Do they take another quarterback? It's kind of a weak quarterback class, most would say, this year. I think Bryce Young, if he continues to play at least league average, I think he might buy himself one more year as a starter in this league, which I was very, very worried about, this past offseason. So good for Bryce Young. This past weekend, man, put some good stuff on tape. Just looks more decisive. He's quick getting the ball out. Some nice sideline throws. Very willing to kind of like feel pressure, get out of the pocket, either throw it away or, take off. Like, it's been a lot better than what he has put on tape recently. So hat tip to Bryce Young. Maybe the Canales effect is finally starting to come to fruition.
I think he is definitely going to play. That's what I'm going to go with. He's definitely going to play his way into at least next year of, like, not just looking better, which he has looked a lot better. I mean, like, winning. He's won 2 of the last the Panthers have won, the 2 games before the bye week, almost taking the Chiefs right to the very end here with the schedule of you have Tampa twice, which Tampa's a good team, but they're just weird. Like, if the Panthers split with Tampa, that would not surprise me in the slightest. Then they get Dallas in there. Arizona is, you never know which Arizona is going to show up on any particular day, and they're home, so it's the team on the West going to the East Coast. That has a negative effect. So I think that, just 1 or 2 more wins and the Panthers are at a spot of, like, why reach for the quarterback? Just take a player, a blue chip guy who can be a part of a foundational part of this team wherever it is for the next couple of years. So I think we'll get Bryce next year, for better or for worse.
And they invested so much in, if you think about, like, a bunch of money in the offensive line. They got a bunch of money towards the guards. They spent on Jatavian Sanders, who unfortunately got hurt, Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Legette. And then you look at, like, who was making plays in the game. It's like David Moore. Thielen had like a long yak play. But overall, when I was watching it too, I was like, okay, they can work with this. And it is funny because no other job can you say, like, okay, you're average. All right, we're good. You can keep the job. But that's where we're at. I mean, it's a huge improvement of, we thought the Chiefs would just dominate them, and that game was close the whole time. So yeah, competent for us. That's good enough. Now for fantasy, is he ever going to run enough to be like a difference maker?
I mean, I don't think so. If you're talking about like a true difference maker, like the Daniels types, I would be shocked.
Like a fringe top 10, 12 season.
I mean, I think when you're looking at how he plays in his game, like, I think if you get top like 16-ish fantasy numbers, like solid quarterback 2 in fantasy numbers, you'd be thrilled with where things were last year. I still don't see a huge ceiling in his game. Now, it's hard to have a ceiling when you're throwing to, like you said, David Moore and the ghost of Adam Thielen and all those dudes. So maybe Leggett can take another step forward next year. Maybe they actually draft a legit playmaker. Maybe they get one in free agency. Yep. They've got a ton of money. So that would really help his case. But still, I think the most likely outcome here is like middle quarterback 2-ish rankings in Superflex formats.
Gotcha. All right, Mike, who you got for the rewind?
So I watched Jordan Addison because he had himself a particularly nice game where he has been, I think, one of the bigger disappointments. Like Addison wasn't being looked at for this year in particular, like, oh, it's going to be another great year. With Kirk Cousins gone, he's going to take a step back. But it has been multiple steps back. And then this week, out of nowhere, 8 for 162 with a touchdown. So I went through, just rewatched everything. I rewatched everything with my eye on Addison and then my eye on Jefferson to see if, like, was this was Jefferson available on these targets? And for the most part, he wasn't. So this was, it looked like Addison just taking advantage of an opportunity, and he played like really well. These were not easy layup catches that he was making. Multiple contested catches, and then breaking a couple tackles for the huge play down the sideline there. So it was. I was hoping I could get something from it, like a actionable piece of advice here. And I guess the actionable is, oh, hey, if they throw him the ball, he can actually do something. Like, he is a good wide receiver. I just don't know. Like, it won't surprise me after this week. This didn't look like the type of performance where you go, yep, that's the building block for next week. I expect he'll be more involved. I don't know if I expect him to take a step forward or not. Just a reminder that he is a good player. I mean, we had Waddle this week as well, too, where it's you want to give up on these players, but sometimes you just got to take a player who they're good, like Addison or Waddle. Just let them sit on your bench for a while. Don't keep hurting yourself over and over with the start, but there's a reason you thought they were a good player, and their talent hasn't just evaporated over the first 8 weeks or whatever of the season. And maybe they're not what you had hoped they were going to become, but they're good. So just give them some time. It would be, I guess, the takeaway here.
Yeah, and it just reminds you the volatility of the wide receiver position week to week. Because Jefferson coming in had really good splits against kind of the single high looks that the Bears had, and you kind of saw Addison have these monster plays like that. That play down the sideline was a awesome throw from Darnold. Hit Addison in stride, and then Addison just kind of tight ropes the sideline. But those are one of those plays where it's like, well, Jefferson could have made that play. It's just like the way that the coverages were set up. I did see a couple plays with Jalen Johnson just like all over Jefferson, just like, and not in a good way, like tugging his shirt. It was just like, okay, they put him in positions where he just literally couldn't do anything. But I guess with Addison, it's one of those players where I feel like I'm still going to guess wrong. Like, I have him on a bench
right,
in a dynasty league. And if it was a best ball league, great, but it's not.
Three of the past 4 weeks, over 13 points, over 13, the huge 26-point game. There's just one bummer in there. I mean, it's a big bummer, 3.9 points, but I don't know. Maybe we're heating up here. Maybe.
Yeah, we talked about him last week on Sink or Swim. He was kind of one of the guys that it's like obviously this past week's game, if you got him, you're like, oh baby, this is why I either drafted him in the rookie draft or traded for him this offseason or whatever. You're excited. What you talked about last week, it's like, I think overall the sentiment around Addison has been like, it's been fine, in the last year or two. Like, he had a really good rookie year with the touchdowns, but his actual like under the hood efficiency stuff was pretty average, I would say, for a rookie. So, I mean, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of what we've seen in the last month or so. It's hard to know kind of when these blow up spots are going to happen, but when teams are going to try to scheme away Justin Jefferson, Addison is talented enough to win in these matchups. So I hope that continues moving forward. But like Kyle said, I think it's going to be highly, highly volatile.
Yeah, he's probably best a wide receiver 3 flex option. Like we want him to be a wide receiver 2. Like we think he can elevate to that based on talent in his first round draft capital. But I feel like he's just always going to live in that land where with Jefferson there and Hawkinson too. Like Hawkinson, saw 9 targets, went over 100.
And we get a full reset next year.
Right.
Because who's the starting quarterback week 1? Is J.J. McCarthy ready with the knee injury? Do they have to put in another stopgap? Does Sam Darnold not find the deal he's looking for, so come back? It is so up in the air for Minnesota next year.
Yeah, what do we know about McCarthy? I saw some news blurbs last couple of weeks, Betz, but what is up with his recovery?
Yeah, so he had a meniscus repair. His injury happened in the preseason, if you remember all the way back. And then there was a report, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that he had to have a second procedure for swelling in the knee. Having that is not normal after a meniscus injury. Doesn't mean he's like not going to start next year, but it definitely means, okay, like the recovery probably hasn't gone as according to plan so far. Obviously, it's November, and we're talking about September of next year. He's not ahead of schedule?
He's not ahead of
Behind?
schedule?
I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but let's just wait till May, Mike. In May, I guarantee he'll be ahead of schedule.
Well, right now, he sounds like he's behind schedule.
It's so good.
What a loser.
He's in season and behind schedule. That could not be worse.
No. His career's over.
Well, I took him in a super flex league. Cool. All right, one more player I want to bring up is Tony Pollard, because he ended up 24 for 119 and 1, only 3 for 10 through the air. And first off, that game was wild, because if you would have told me the Titans would have gone into Houston and looked the way they did, especially on offense. I mean, Will Levis had 7 sacks in the first half. It was so bad, and yet they were leading the whole way. I don't know Nico Collins had 3 targets in the first half. I have no idea what the Texans were doing. So I rewatched the whole game, and then I rewatched just Pollard snaps. And I'm not going to lie, the numbers look great at 119 and 1. He still kind of looks slow. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way about Pollard. He did have a couple of runs where he just shed tacklers and they just didn't tackle him. Like one of my biggest takeaways is I bet D'Amico Ryans, former linebacker, was just pissed because they did such a bad job tackling over and over again. But he's 7th in the NFL in carries, Tony Pollard. He's gotten the role that they paid him to do. You haven't seen much Spears. Spears has been hurt this year. He's 4th in yards after contact per attempt. So you've seen that contact balance all year long, getting a ton of work. But just like overall throughout the year, it's kind of just been plodding, and he just doesn't look as quick as you did in those Dallas days, 2-3 years ago.
Do you feel like the whole season has looked like that, or because Pollard's been dealing with an injury? I can't remember if it was ankle or yeah. So I mean, did you feel like it was the season?
I can't tell you based on all the other games, but I can say in this game, you look at the stat line, you think, oh, he killed it. There were 2 or 3 runs, and one of those he should have been tackled for a 5-yard loss,
but he wasn't,
because
Kyle.
The Texans are idiots. And anyway, he's 34th in rush success rate this year out of 45. He's 39th out of 45 running backs in EPA per game as a runner. I just think if I'm looking at the stat line and I look at what he is, he's 27 and a half years old, going to be 28 this offseason. Tony Pollard's a player that I don't look at as a building block. I just don't see him as a player that I want to hold on to beyond this year. So if your league still has a trade deadline, I would definitely be willing to trade high on this if he's your running back 3 or 4. Because beyond this year, their offensive line, by the way, is one of the worst in the league as well. Who knows what they're going to do with Levis this offseason. But my takeaway was this was a good fantasy game. I don't think it was a good NFL game.
I think that's a bad take.
Take it. Go for it.
I would... In the world of Dynasty, I can agree he's not a building block, but screw them RBs. There's so few RBs that are building blocks for your
Pollard
roster.
Or first?
I mean, at this point of the year, if I am going for it, Pollard 100%. We feel like we're at the end, but I mean, we still got championship week is what, 5 weeks away. So many unfortunate things can happen between here and there. And I mean, most dynasty teams, if you have 3 good startable running backs, like you're in a really good position. And I would hold on to it. And then I would say next week is Washington. Okay. Your boy Rico Dowdle didn't seem to have a problem with the Washington Commanders. Then Jacksonville, Cincinnati, the Colts, and Jacksonville. I would hold on to Tony Pollard. I think that you're going to get a stretch run. Now, after you have utilized his services for what you need through the playoffs, I can understand wanting to move on in that case. But right now, I would be holding on to Pollard. Betz, you got to break the tie.
Yeah, I don't want to be the lame-o here and just be like, oh, you're both right. Because I think if you are a contender, keep him. And we also need to remind people, Tajay Spears was also out this past weekend, and when he's been out the last couple of weeks, he missed 2 or 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. In those games, Pollard's workload was just insane. Then you saw Spears back; they kind of got back to that timeshare. So
yeah, that is.
I don't think you're ever going to get this level on a consistent basis if Spears is healthy. That's a big if. But just to point it out, since the bye week, he's on pace. His 17-game pace would be 1,300 rushing yards. So Pollard has been very effective. He's been good for fantasy. Shout out to Mike, who made him a trade target back on, who could forget, October 9th. I mean, what a day that was. I did actually trade for him.
Apparently, I don't remember.
Right after the show, a second as a contender. So I love that. But yes, if you can get a first and you are not a top 5 team, 4 team, I'm doing that for Pollard. So that's where I'm at with Pollard.
But there's, 27 and a half years old. There's not many running backs at that age where I wouldn't take a first for it. Like I said, the building block guys are so far and few out there that when you have a guy who's actually usable, sometimes you got to try and win, not just have a whole bunch of draft capital.
But they told me that Dynasty is just about acquiring stuff in theory, and
yeah, I've seen some teams in my league that they're going with that route.
I know exactly a team in going there. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're going to be talking about a couple of teams that have either overperformed, maybe underperformed our expectations for 2024, give some dynasty outlook, and really just talk about this team and how they function together.
That don't impress me much.
Nice. All right, we're going to bring up a couple teams. The aforementioned Broncos, who I brought up earlier, is the first team that I want to discuss. And when you think about a team, you go into the season with the expectations of here's their overall roster and here's how we think they're going to perform. So overall, we would say rookie quarterbacks don't really sustain high-end production. It's kind of been the stat I think we brought up for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I still stand by it.
I think,
but we've had some outliers this year.
Yeah, we've had Cortland Sutton, who's right now the wide receiver 8, and they still have their bye week to come, but wide receiver 8 in total points. And Bo Nix has sustained that. And outside of Sutton, though, is there anybody else in this team that you could say they've been consistent? That's the hardest thing.
No. It's consistent for this year. I think that the Broncos are more of a fun team to me to project where they're going. Because you have Devon Vele, who he's
old,
sword. Yeah, okay, he's old. He is almost 27 years old as a rookie.
Kyle can't handle it. It's just breaking his spreadsheets right now.
It really does. It doesn't work.
But
so does Bo Nix.
Point being, Bo Nix looks like the real deal. We have had quarterbacks look like that too, and then completely fall on their faces. So I'm not ready to crown Bo Nix just yet. It's just like the other guys, probably Jaden Daniels. I'm ready to be yep, we're all in on Daniels. But the other guys, hopeful, optimistic. But the last 3 weeks, Vele's been pretty good. 12 points basically, almost 9, 11 points, and then so it's And between him, Troy Franklin, Mims, sort of, it's like, are the Broncos somebody that are going to be looking to make a splash at the wide receiver position? They're tough because they could go either way. Like, are they going to be are they going to be on the Higgins, Hullapalooza of what's going on? I don't know, but that, and then the running back room, especially the running back room, actually, for me, of just what Sean Payton has historically given us so much, and he is just taking it all away from. He's just stealing souls right now of convincing us to play Javonte when we shouldn't, convincing us to play Audric Estime when we shouldn't. Like, Javonte's in the final year of his contract. It would be so weird if they gave him any sort of money to come back, unless it's like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire minimum, you come back for 1 year. But how are you guys feeling about those particular rooms?
The running back room in particular, I think is,
Sure.
I think it's one of those that none of these guys really make you excited for the rest of this year or next year. Personally, like Estime, I know he's had his fans in Dynasty circles, like he kind of is like an early 2-down plotter. It's kind of how I would describe him. That's kind of how he was projected out of Notre Dame anyway, that those guys are not that valuable in fantasy unless your team is scoring a ton of touchdowns or you're outlier good as a runner. And I'm not sure that he's that. For Javonte, I think, like you said, I think it'd be very weird if he came back. And then, Peyton has always liked his, Kamara-esque type guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield.
Right.
So I think you're always going to have a committee as long as Peyton is there, which makes it very tough for fantasy unless the offense just elevates to be a top 10 team in terms of offensive production, which in theory could happen, but I think you're asking a lot for those things to come to fruition. So yeah, I'm not that excited about anybody here in the running back room. I don't know what your thoughts are, Kyle, or if you want to talk about wide receivers here next.
Just like, would you gamble on Estime? You could get him for a 2. I feel really confident about that. Or would you rather go into the draft?
I think I would rather have the second there. He was a 5th round pick. Is that right, Kyle?
5th round. I remember his tape. One of my takeaways was like, this guy thinks he's Saquon, but he's just a thick dude. And he did have a lot of like touchdowns at Notre Dame, and it's hard for me to get behind a player with the draft capital that's not going to catch a ton of passes.
Yeah,
he's just not.
It's a fragile profile for sure.
And they divvy stuff up so much. So I think the harder thing is they went into the season, at least from our perspective, of like, oh, they're going to punt because they're eating all the salary from Russell Wilson. They have a good defense. They'll probably slow things down, try to win with their defense. And Nix is the quarterback 3 since week 5. So Nix and Sutton have kind of been the only 2 that you could hold on to for fantasy. And yet I think what I'm trying to figure out is like, is there gold in 2025 and 2026 that I need to look at this team and try to figure out, like, is there a cheaper piece that can take the next step? So Mims and Troy Franklin has been like a fun discussion because we loved them in college. We thought they were super fun college players, and now they just don't fit Peyton's system as full-time players. So those might be really cheap players that you could get for a 3rd if you think, but I still think you're just gambling here. I like Peyton hates Greg Dulcich, who doesn't play for the team anymore.
Apparently.
Like literally, I need to look at it, but I think he hasn't played since like week 4.
It's been a while.
That's so weird, but I mean, he wasn't in this regime, so
you're correct. Week 4 was his last appearance.
That's sad. Like, he's a talented player, and he's just not even getting dressed for the game. So my final conversation here, because Sutton has 1 more year under contract. They deferred a ton of money. He'll be on this team for the next year. Long term with Nix, because he's kind of like the main piece here. Do you view him as a top 12 dynasty quarterback? And I'll give you some names to kind of figure out if he's been that for fantasy this year.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when I compare the guys around him, so like, would you rather have Justin Herbert or Bo Nix in dynasty?
Herbert.
Yeah, Herbert.
Herbert for me as well. What about Brock Purdy?
That's
because he's going to get a bag.
Tough. I mean, real quick on the Niners, like, you look at their core, right? And we talked about it a lot. Like the Ayuk injury, Debo another year older, he's showing some signs there.
It's rotten to the core.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like it's like it's on its last shelf life here. I think I would take Bo Nix, just with the rushing upside.
Yeah,
It's a coin flip.
I don't mind that.
Who's older?
Very close.
Bo Nix.
Between Purdy and Bo Nix.
Nix.
It's barely Purdy.
Oh, is it?
Barely Purdy. Yeah.
I mean, Bo Nix had his 8 years as a starter.
He's actually older than Javonte, which is hilarious to think about. All right, one more name just to compare Bo Nix, which, man, if you drafted Bo Nix either in a one-quarterback league or in a super flex, to be nothing, really. Like you weren't expecting
Yeah, you're
anything.
feeling great.
Would you rather have Bo Nix or Drake May?
Testing my priors here, Kyle.
That one, I'll take Bo there. Just because of that's only of a, I get it. The Broncos turned everything around way faster than we thought that they would. The Patriots seem like they are so far away from having a anything remotely high powered on offense.
I think the right answer is Bo Nix, and I think he will have a better NFL season next year. But I still think the upside case for May is way better than Nix, if that makes sense. So I guess I would take Nix, but I still love May.
Okay, I would
Remember when they gave Ramondre Stevenson that huge extension?
Stupid. Sorry, I just could not fathom why they would.
Oh man,
With the worst offensive line in football, by the way. And
when that one happened, it was, I mean, that was peak off season where I'm like, I think Gibson could take the job. Like, I think he might just be better. And like, boom, Ramondre Stevenson, tons and tons of cash. Like, oh, maybe not. But guess what? Maybe so. We're still not done yet.
Ramondre's line this week was, 8 for 13.
Yeah.
Nothing in the passing game. Oh, it was bad.
Since he's come back from his injury, so he missed week 6. So week 7 through week 12, he is running for a very mighty 2.8 yards per attempt.
Goodness, man.
Oh, man. Running, he's averaging 40 yards on the ground, that's more than I thought it would have been. Guess you have a couple games in there, Chicago and the Rams, where 70 plus. That's fine. He is just, it never looks good to me when Ramondre's touching the ball right now.
So we brought up the Broncos as a team that's impressed us. Let's go another one. The Packers is a team that we have right now. They are tied for third.
Dude, they're so weird.
They're a weird team because if you just were to, if we're in a league where it's just fantasy teams or success, you'd say Packers is a team that I want, or I want your survivor pool, wherever else. They're 5th in EPA per play. And yet outside of Josh Jacobs, who else has been consistent this year?
Nobody. It was so frustrating. I started Jaden Reed in a couple places. I mean, this past week was like bye week apocalypse, right? So, and I'm not excited to start Jaden Reed. You just know what you're getting into with him. And it's like on the first drive or two, he has like 2 catches. You're like, okay, here we go. This is a Jaden Reed game. All of a sudden, he disappears. Christian Watson was the dude last week. He disappears. Romeo Doubs goes out. You got Wicks in there for a bit. So I think our fears entering the season was like, this offense should be very good. We like Jordan Love. We like the play caller. Like all that is there. And they have been. They're top 10 in like every single metric. Yet you can't really rely on anybody in fantasy right now except for Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love. You're starting most weeks too. But even that, these wide receivers, I'm looking at their routes run. This does not include last week's, but just entering the game last week, nobody was running more than 75% of the routes. It doesn't really matter how efficient you are. It's hard to be good in fantasy if you're not on the field enough. And that was kind of the fear with guys like Jaden Reed and Wicks, who was the hotness in Dynasty this past summer. It's like, I don't know. I think this is what they want to do. That's kind of what they want to do with these guys. But in 2025, you got 2 guys in their final year of their deal with Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. So things could change in the next 2 years. But I think for this year, obviously moving forward, and for next year, this is kind of what you're going to get.
And you had this past week, just, zooming in, Watson dropped, I think it was a touchdown, right? Am I remembering that correctly? That would have been a touchdown. And that was a drop. Jordan and Love hit Doubs in the end zone. It would have been a really, really hard catch. But it was still like, man, these just two small events that if they go slightly better, you have these huge touchdowns, but instead you have just a pedestrian week for Jordan Love. And then my bigger question here, though, is Kyle, how many quiet secret victory Jayden Reed laps have you been on this season?
The hardest thing about Jayden Reed is because, we talked at length about him as a player when he's on the field, and then him as a fantasy person that you can count on. So I feel good about that call where I've said, like, man, it was going to be inconsistent. I have him in my main home league. And so I'm like so frustrated because I felt the highs, I felt the lows, and then
you didn't take your own advice.
Yeah, and so I'm completely lost with him. It's so hard because at some point I think we thought this is a top 15 dynasty wide receiver. This is
well, week 1 on the nasty Brazil field, and everyone lost their freaking minds, not factoring in how bad the field was and defenders couldn't react. And that was, I guess Jordan Love did miss the next 2 games. And then, that's what it was. The start was so wild. Week 1 was like, holy crap.
He was the wide receiver.
Jayden Reed's going to rule. He will rule the world. Then the next 2 games, you're like, oh, well, Jordan Love didn't play. And then Love was back for that game against Minnesota, right? Am I remember? Let me just double check.
He had another monster
because you guys
game.
are not giving me anything. Yeah, it was. So Jordan Love, come on, website. Jordan Love came back week 4, and Jayden Reed, the wide receiver 2 on that week. You're like, yeah, actually, I told you we're back. And then it's been, yeah.
It feels like an offense
tough.
that if you want to buy in during the off season, like let's say, like I just like the offense, I believe in LaFleur, you're gonna guess wrong. Like that's what it always feels like. Is I'm paying up for the offense, and yet when it gets divided out, it's like Kraft catches a touchdown this past week, but he hadn't been doing much. He goosed the week before. Like whichever player you go for, and the answer all along was Josh Jacobs, which last season would not have taught us that. But any other takeaways, Betz, you have here? Because we talked about Lloyd last week with Jason. Jason was like, I'm willing to give him another shot. I know you have to keep waiting. I know he gets injured every single week. But any other takeaways from the Packers?
Not really. I will just say with Josh Jacobs and how game scripts have gone, like especially this past week without Purdy and Trent Williams and everybody on defense for the Niners, it did kind of feel like the writing was on the wall that this was probably going to be a Josh Jacobs game. I think the spread moved from, it was like a pick 'em to 2.5, then 5.5, and the total was dropping. And it was like, okay, this is probably going to be just Green Bay controls it and goes through Jacobs, and that's what happened. I don't think every game is going to go like this, where there's just little pass volume. I think the week prior, Jordan Love, if I'm remembering correctly, attempted like 20 passes 2 weeks ago. This past week, it was again.
Yeah, 17.
17?
It was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 23 against San Francisco, 17 the week before against Chicago.
So you need this team to be pushed for multiple wide receivers and pass catchers to get there on a week in and week out basis. So to me, they're more like matchup plays than anything else. More like, I guess, game script plays, if that makes sense, where you can project a potential back and forth, that kind of thing. Because if they can, kind of limit dropbacks, if they can control the ball with Josh Jacobs in their defense, I think that's kind of what they want to do right now. So it does kind of zap the ceiling and consistency for these wide receivers, especially when they're sharing time. But yeah, they're all pieces that like I'd be fine to have in Dynasty. And I still think Jayden Reed is a very talented player. But as long as the situation is what it is, where these 4 wide receivers are rotating, you're going to be frustrated in fantasy.
That's a good point, though, to think about your start sits and then think about the entire team and how it functions. And if they're not pushed, then you're looking at Jayden Reed and saying like, oh, this guy could go off for 150, except this game isn't asking him to do that. Like we kind of saw, they're playing Brandon Allen this week. They didn't need these monster plays. They just kind of controlled the clock the way they needed to. So the next team I want to talk about is the Houston Texans, which has also kind of been a wild ride this year. If you think about for Dynasty, the ride with CJ Stroud was, we loved him. The 3 of us loved him last year. And then we pumped the brakes in the offseason and say like, man, there's a lot of hype here. And when they signed Diggs, do you guys remember like how high it was in Dynasty circles? We were trying to talk that down all offseason. He was quarterback 1 or 2 in most people's startup.
Yeah, I totally get it. And and fantasy football is difficult. Obviously, we don't get everything right. The CJ Stroud conversation feels it it sucks because it was like we were right that the player wasn't going to come through. So you're like, I was right that this guy was not going to be as good. So that's a little unfortunate, but it felt like very sage advice here of, I mean, it's a blanket statement. If you are just a pocket passer, you're gonna have, and you're a great quarterback, you will have years where you are just awesome. Like, look at Joe Burrow right now. Like, Joe Burrow is having an amazing season for fantasy football for us. It's not a guarantee that's going to happen again next year. It's like it's clicking right now, and you see this all the time with the guys who don't run at all, that it's just inconsistent on, like, you can zoom out and like from year to year it can be inconsistent, and then week to week even more so. So it's difficult. To be fair to Stroud, he was missing Nico for, a good amount of time. He seems to be missing Tank Dell just for the season. What did Tank do yesterday? Did he do it? I don't remember.
I think he had like a
Nico had his touchdown call
NFL game, but nothing.
3 for 72.
Yeah, nothing crazy for fantasy.
So yeah, we had the big 39-yard play, but the point being of, like, Tank is not making a difference for Stroud,
and I think,
right, like, on the season, I think that's a fair thing to say.
And I think the other thing too is, like, when the Diggs trade happened, and then you kind of talk through the team of, like, okay, like, Stroud entering year 2. He probably has a lot more trust from his coaching staff to unleash him a little bit more and lean on the pass game. Nico again, you get Tank back healthy, like, all these things kind of coming together. Meanwhile, like, the identity of the team has been Joe Mixon as the forefront. And maybe like the Nico injury kind of led to some of that, but Mixon's been good. I mean, this past weekend was kind of a train wreck, but otherwise he's been incredible for fantasy, for the NFL, for everything. He looks great. And, Bobby Slowick, like, his history coming from, the San Francisco ties, the Shanahan ties, like, all those offenses are based off of efficiency, generally low pass volume, and leaning on the run game. And so to expect Stroud to not only be incredible for fantasy, but also support 3 dudes that were going, like, in redraft leagues as top 36 options, in hindsight is easy to say, but it's kind of crazy, right? Like, when you kind of think about it, also factoring in with Stroud, just some natural regression, right? Like, what he did as a rookie was incredible. 8.2 YPA, only threw 5 picks. That was definitely bound to regress, based off how efficient he was. And you're seeing a little bit of that this year. So again, as always is the case in fantasy, I think it's probably somewhere in the middle on Stroud. Like Mike said, he's going to have incredible games. There's going to be games where he's not even crucial to the win because they're leaning on Joe Mixon so much. So yeah, it's definitely frustrating if you invested, especially in startup, a premium pick in him.
The biggest difference too this year is he's just taking way more sacks. I mean, they're 25th in turnover rate this year as a team, where you talked about protecting the ball. He's averaging 3.3 sacks per game. And it's just so different when you look and kind of survey the field. Last year was buying time, seeing Nico with these bomb plays. I feel like right now it's Nico getting called back for touchdowns every week and us wanting to pull our hair out. But
yeah,
Nico's a stud. He's going to be a stud for a long time. He's not even 26 years old. Stroud's going to be fine. It's just, right now in a startup, he's quarterback 6 in a lot of places. I don't mind that, but like he's going to perform more like in that 7 to 12 range most years, where you're going to have an outlier season every once in a while. But this defense is also good enough rushing the passer that I think they're going to only get better like next year and beyond. So I just wonder if Stroud's going to ever be pushed to put up those crazy numbers he did as a rookie where he's throwing, 40 times a game. Like, if we're not getting that, then he's going to be able to support Nico and maybe another option sometimes. And that's not what we wanted, right? We signed up for give me the whole offense. And instead it's kind of like middle of the road. So we'll see. It's a young team. It's a fun team. They do have some decisions this next year to kind of figure out like who's going to be their wide receiver 3, because Diggs is off the books. They invested a ton of money in Schultz. He's kind of just farting around up there.
These tight ends who just trick their way into these
the Hoopers
big contracts. Yeah. The Hoopers, the Schultz. It's how did the teams not see this coming. Like,
didn't Schultz bet on himself the year before, didn't get the bag, and then did get the bag,
and then had to his credit, he had a stronger year with the team. But then they go and they trade. So what we got 15 games, 59 catches, 630 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like, it's good. I mean, and look, there's other aspects, of course, to being a tight end of that we don't care about for fantasy football. But it's wild when these teams fall into these traps.
And real quick before
I'm
we move
whisper
on
this.
from,
let me whisper this about tight ends though.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I think
right.
I think Cade Otton's going to get an extension this offseason. It's going to be the same thing.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I'm so scared for him.
Oh, Cade.
He was necessary.
I hope he gets money.
Me too.
I
love him.
He's had a great year, but yeah, when ladies and gentlemen, when Cade Otton gets the bag from Tampa Bay, don't overreact. He's still Cade Otton.
Oh.
Real quick.
We always have
before we move on
special
from
place in
Houston,
my heart.
I do want to point out that next year is the final year of the John Mechie rookie deal. They have gone to him as their wide receiver 3. And as long as Tank and Nico are healthy, there's not going to be a ton of value here. But as a cheap, throw a third at someone, stick him on the end of your bench, and maybe he could be the third option next year that you could plug in on bye weeks and injuries, that kind of thing. I don't hate that because he has really overtaken Xavier Hutchinson. They had him in that wide receiver 3 role for a while, and it has not worked. It's been Mechie the last couple weeks.
I think that's fun.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Speaking of Cade Otton, I'm going to bring up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they were a team that I need to take a massive L on. I figured them moving on.
Oh, we all do.
I just figured moving on from Canales, going to Liam Cohen, who's been the snip, snap out of the league 5 times in the last 5 years, it wouldn't go as well. And Baker is one of those players that you looked at her career year and you go, okay, he can't keep doing the same thing. This isn't going to work. And yet it's been awesome. Chris Godwin was awesome until he got hurt. And that's really sad because he's going to be a free agent. This team as a whole, going into the year, there were some things that we also poked holes in with Rachaad White. I think that was one of my bold calls. Bucky Irving's going to overtake him. That call's looking really good. Rachaad White is going into his final year of his contract this next year, but it seems like it's still going to be a 1-2 punch back and forth. My question is this team beyond this year, because Baker's kind of put himself at a level where it's okay, this dude got the bag. He's a starting quarterback, and now for fantasy, he's a difference maker for your team. He's a quarterback 1 that went from, is this guy even going to be in the league, to makes a difference for your fantasy team. What is it beyond this year? Because other than Evans and Bucky, I don't know what other asset to buy into. I mentioned Otton as he's on the field, but don't buy in if he gets a big contract. So I feel like Jalen McMillan is my favorite cheap piece to go after still. But I'm not sure how people feel about him.
It's been disappointing that Sterling Shepard's the one who got the Chris Godwin role of, Shepard was getting the targets, and let me pull it up of what he just got this past week. 7. What are we doing, Tampa Bay? 7 targets for Sterling Shepard turned into 5. I would have to go and rewatch it because I'm just box score hunting, but 5 for 16. 5 catches for 16 yards, and the long was 7. So essentially half of his yards came in one of those catches. Put the rookie there. See what he can do. It's so strange to me that is the decision that they went with.
Yeah. I mean, Jalen McMillan, it's been tough in general for him to kind of get a role and get going, right? Because he was out of the lineup for several weeks with the hamstring injury, came back out again for a couple weeks, and he's kind of been in and out. And there was some talk from Todd Bowles the first time around when he missed a chunk of time saying we're hopeful he can kind of get back up to speed. It's probably going to take him a little bit of time. And they've kind of have shown that maybe he doesn't have the trust yet to get that playing time in that role. Moving forward, maybe it could happen down the stretch. The problem sometimes is with these teams that are trying to make a push for the playoffs in real life NFL terms is they will put the guys on the field they trust in the right situations. And it just feels like McMillan is not there yet. Not that he can't get there, but I think for what we were hoping he could be when he was drafted in the NFL draft, obviously it's been a very big disappointment as a rookie.
What do you guys do with Bucky's value? Because since week 6, he's been averaging 15 fantasy points per game, over 5 a carry. He's looked electric, and he's kind of like the best comparison is James Cook, where he's not big, and yet he runs bigger than he should, and he's electric.
Mm-hmm.
And I think NFL teams view him as not just a scat back. Like, he's not Devin Singletary. He's bigger than that. And at Oregon, he did run between the tackles. It's not like Bucky Irving was just an outside runner. So it's hard, though, when you look at buying into a player in the offseason because White will be there. And even if his carries are inefficient, like, this team kind of trusts him. He's kind of been on their run with him the last couple of years. So Bucky, like, is he a player this offseason that you're looking to go after, or is his value going to be so high people think he's the new hotness that it's like too expensive?
He's gonna, I think, be very scary this offseason because I think that I think the value is already really propped up. Like, when you're, I'm trying to look through the opportunities here. This could be the turning point. I will start the conversation there because it was the bye week. The bye week rookie bump is a real thing. And he came out, he outsnapped Rachaad White. He got the 6 targets. He caught all 6 of them, got 64 yards. That is really everything. We have to know that Bucky Irving is going to see at least 3 targets a week, which he's been doing he's basically hitting that. But I think that I'm concerned that the us being in fantasy football we will overreact to Bucky, and kind of the way that I felt like people were overreacting to Rachaad White, where, yeah, it was awesome because he was getting literally everything, and then it's fragile, right? When you're not efficient, but you're getting all the work, so you're great for fantasy. It's a really fragile situation. Usually, it just takes a young guy. I mean, speaking of, like, you're like, oh, Estime was drafted in the 3rd. Bucky was a 4th round pick. Like, these were already long odds that he was going to hit a player at his size with his draft capital to really do something in year 1. Like, it's a more rare thing. So he will freak me out heading into the offseason because I think my concern is people will be too quick to say, well, this is it. Bucky is the guy, instead of, Kyle, what you're saying of, it's probably still going to be a 1A, 1B, and maybe there's a third guy. I don't know what they're doing with Sean Tucker. He might get punished for the fumble, but he had an early goal line touchdown this past week and people weren't hurt. They're just like, hey, Sean, go in there, you get yourself a free touchdown. So I think that he will be a good running back 2 who can give you spike weeks, but you got to be careful crowning a player with this profile and this situation to just rocking him to the top.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I like Bucky. I think he's put some really good stuff on tape. Super efficient. Like, he's like top 10 in kind of every metric that suggests he's very good as far as like explosive rush rate, missed tackles force, that kind of stuff. He's like lapping Rachaad White and all of that. And you can watch it, when you watch the games, you can see it.
Yeah, because you have to break 2 tackles a year and you'll lap Rachaad White.
But yeah, with Rachaad White, it's like so interesting how they use these guys. Because, like, you think Bucky, he's not necessarily like small, but I think for what you picture in today's NFL of like a workhorse running back, like, he's not really that size, right? But when they are ahead, it's usually Bucky that's in there as the lead ball carrier. And like Rachaad White has kind of been there in like trailing game scripts, which is just weird in terms of how you would picture these guys. It was super encouraging to see, like you said, Bucky get a bump in his pass game role this past week, because before it was Rachaad White still dominating that work. Rachaad White had 1 target in this game this past week. So I'm super excited to see like what happens over the next, 3-4 weeks with Bucky. If that holds and he can be a player that gives you 10 to 12 carries every week, but also adds 3 to 5 targets every single week on a consistent basis, I do think he will be insanely valuable for fantasy, but we need a bigger sample size to make a conclusion there, I think.
I'm looking at Bucky. He's only 22 years old, and I'm trying to compare him to some other backs. And I just know that the way that Dynasty works in the offseason is around running back 15-ish in Dynasty rankings. You start to make the list and you get to that range, you're just like, well, this guy's exciting. I'm just going to throw him in there. It was a couple years ago. It was like Pollard was in there. Ramondre was in there. Just a bunch of dudes where you kind of just run out of names. And I know that he's going to be thrown in there. For instance, like, would you rather have Bucky Irving or Chase Brown in Dynasty? Because Chase Brown, we look at the situation now and go, okay, this backfield is going to turn towards him. Zach Moss, not only is out for the year, but he was basically the most inefficient running back in the NFL this year. And so he's got the backfield to himself, but I think we all love Bucky right now, where that almost feels like a coin flip, where Chase just might have more opportunity.
I like them both. Chase Brown it's enjoy the Chase Brown ride right now, because that, speaking of another one that feels like, oh boy, when it's draft day and they're in rounds 2 and
Steal
3,
undies time,
and you got Chase Brown, you better be just clenching your butt cheeks when that's going on. I think I'd go Bucky there over. I'd rather have Chase Brown this year for sure, but just long term is probably Bucky. That's a really tough one. I was running through the comps, Kyle. Is this the new Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, where we're like, oh my God, Melvin, just get out of the way. Stop taking touches away from our sweet, awesome, excellent. It feels like that might be the case. And eventually Melvin did go away, but not at first.
Yeah. There's 2.5 years difference, by the way, between Chase Brown and Bucky Irving. So I don't know if that weighs at all, but Bucky's pretty young for the position. I am going to give one other name on the other end of the spectrum, okay? Would you rather have Bucky Irving or Alvin Kamara in Dynasty, who just got more money, apparently, to play football?
I would take Bucky there. It kind of feels like, I mean, Kamara's been really good this year in fantasy, like nothing negative to say about him, but the conversation all offseason was like, is it there? Are we at the end? Like the efficiency stuff was really starting to fall off, and opportunity's been there, and credit to him, he got paid. But the Saints just feel like you never really have confidence in this organization to like turn it around and like be good on a consistent basis. Right now, the Bucs are trending up massively. I think the Saints are like very hard nosediving currently.
And for an upside down reason, that's actually, I think if I'm competing, that's how I'm looking at it. I would rather have Kamara.
He wants
because
those
the Saints
garbage PPR points.
The Saints, yeah. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. But it's the game, and I agree. The Saints don't know what they're doing. Like the people in control have no clue what they're doing, and it's just going to be more Kamara. It's Kamara and Taysom Hill. That's their whole plan, and it's not going to win games.
Yeah, you're probably right, because
but I'll take the points.
Give me the PPR points. But yeah, who's their quarterback next year?
Oh, it's probably going to still be Derek Carr.
The Riz loves it that much.
Oh man, if the Riz gets the job, oh brother.
Are you a fan, Mike?
No, I'm just saying that when the interim coach,
he has Mike's style exactly. They're the exact same person.
I know absolutely nothing about him other than
the toilet.
Riz is in his last name.
Or his toilet.
Happening.
What?
Blew it up.
Oh yeah. There is that too. But no, I'm saying looking at like the recent. I don't have all the names off the top of my head, but it's like the recent success rate of an interim guy who comes in, wins a few games, gets the job. How has that looked longer term? And because it's like Pierce, it's not going well. There was Freddie Kitchens with the Cleveland Browns. There's probably some names in there that I'm not remembering, but it's just like it doesn't usually work. Doesn't. I mean, head coaches, I guess, in general don't usually work, but the Saints, they would not shock me if they get a couple more wins before the end of the year. They're like, yeah, all right, we got our guy. Let's do it.
Right. And then, the interim coach kind of gets to figure out, if he gets hired, here's the staff that I want, because I'm going to run the team the way I want to, which there's even more turnover there. One more team that I want to bring up for regress or impress. And this team hopefully impresses everybody. They have definitely taken some money out of my bank account because before the season, I felt very strongly about the Washington Commanders and their under, and they punched me in the face. They've just been awesome. And even in the last couple of weeks where they've dropped a couple of games for fantasy, we're seeing an uptick in some of these performances. So the Commanders have kind of pushed, I don't know, fast forward on the timeline that we thought for them. We kind of thought like, okay, they'll take some lumps this year. Their defense was so bad last year that we thought Dan Quinn would take at least a year or two. They didn't have any of the pieces on the defensive line. And here they are. They're 7-5 now. They've dropped a few. But man, this team is exciting. And then one of the bigger pieces of information we've seen consistently is that free agents and veterans are saying, like, I want to go there. I don't know if you guys have seen some of those news pieces, but like people want to go to Washington to play with Jaden Daniels. So I think they're still a piece or two away from figuring out like how they're going to compete in the NFC. But Terry McLaurin was basically left for dead in Dynasty of a player I didn't want.
He was.
And now he's the wide receiver 4 in total points right now. No big deal. He has one more year under contract. He's 29 years old. And then beyond that, what else are you guys seeing on the roster? I'll tell you who.
Come on, Kyle.
You know what you're seeing.
I can't, Mike. I can't.
Come on, Kyle. We know what's
the Senate.
We know what's happening. Timeout. Halfway through next year, as Zach Ertz inevitably gets a 1-year extension because Cliff just loves Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is having a good season. Yeah. But halfway through, then that will be where Zach Ertz unfortunately gets hurt, and then the second round tight end pick from a few years ago, Ben Sinnott, a.k.a. the Senator, has to step in. That's the future for the Washington Commanders.
How confident are you in that?
Not very confident.
Same, but I love it. I love that. I love that take.
But I am extremely confident that if Cliff removes his head from his buttocks and just puts Sinnott out there, I am very confident that it would succeed. He's just a younger player, so I get it. Let the younger player learn. That's fine. Because if Ben Trey McBride's and you had to wait for it because the guy had to learn everything, and then once the opportunity is there, he's ready to go. Okay, that's fine because we knew that Sinnott would not be this year, but hopefully it's next year by the halfway point.
Yep, agreed. I think he's still a fun trade target that shouldn't cost you much. And there's it's one of those.
It could be even less than people drafted him for
potentially,
because the rookie draft people got a little bit out of control.
Dude, in best ball leagues, he was up to like a 13th round pick at one point. It was just insane.
Come on, man.
This show did not help that.
No,
but I tried. I was really trying. I'm like, I literally felt like I was the captain of the Senate ship, and I'm like, it's not this year, guys, but long term,
2025,
long term, I believe.
Yeah, this seems fun, man. I mean, like you talked about, just kind of the way that they have turned it around so quickly. From weeks 1 to 7, they got out to an unbelievable start, like almost running too hot in terms of their efficiency. And you've seen some regression recently. Weeks 8 to 12, they're 2-3. One of those wins was the Hail Mary game against the Bears, so they really should probably be 1-4. Their scoring's down, their EPA is down, all those things. Ironically, it correlates directly with when Jane Daniels' rib injury happened, so I'm not sure how much of it is that, if it's kind of the Cliff late season collapse that has just happened since he's been in the NFL when he's been in charge of teams.
People figure it out.
Like he always got off to those hot starts in Arizona and then faltered down the stretch. I mean, the skill group is aging a bit. Like when you're relying on Zach Ertz and Noah Brown, and Eckler's obviously not at the peak of his career anymore, but has been good this year. Like it does kind of feel like eventually like this will start to kind of slow down. So I'm really intrigued to see like what happens over the next 5-6 weeks. Can this team make a push for the playoffs or not? But I agree, like the Jane Daniels thing I think is real. He looks great as a thrower. Obviously he can run. So I just want pieces attached to him. And right now when I look at Dynasty, it's like, who are the cheap guys I could go get? You could throw a dart on Luke McCaffrey and hope. I mean, obviously he's done nothing as a rookie. The Senator, I think, obviously is the next, Kelsey Gronk, obviously. Terry's, if you're a contender, and you think you kind of need like one more piece, your trade deadline's open, go get him. I think he'll have value next year. But I do feel like Terry this offseason is going to be at the top of Kyle's regression nerdy models, because what he is doing is insane. From like his contested catch rate to the fact that he needed like an 86-yard unbelievable play this past weekend to have a good fantasy day. It's kind of all happened, and he's running close to the sun. So I do want to point out, I think next year McLaurin is a prime, Kyle's going to tell us all the nerdy numbers of why he's going to regress.
Whoa. Why? I take that as a compliment, I think.
Oh,
But yes,
it's going to
he's
be in the
been-
model, Kyle, isn't it? He's going to be in your spreadsheets.
Well, I mean, we've been watching this year. We're like, this can't stay this hot. I mean, he had like a 6-week run where it was just unbelievable duds, and then has an 86-yard bomb at the end of the game. Just a wild finish. I will end the.
If you want to say that, if you want to take a haymaker for Washington of hoping that he re-signs, it would be Noah Brown, who Kyle talked me out of this week for some reason, despite him going 6 for 71. Thanks, Kyle.
You got Trey McBride.
Yeah, I know. It worked out. But it's like Noah Brown is the kind of like a prime example of, look at just like the peripheral numbers, because the production hasn't been great. But it's, since he kind of took over, he started getting the snaps and starting to get to the targets. 71 yards this past week. A couple weeks ago, you had a 73-yarder. You had a 60-yard game. These are not transformational numbers, of course, but I'm wondering, because they didn't start with Noah Brown being the guy. Like, they were trying out some other guys, like De'Ami Brown and trying out McCaffrey and things. I'm wondering if Noah Brown is playing himself into one of those just like real cheap veteran contracts of like, we'll bring him back. Doesn't guarantee he'll be the 2, but it's like it will leave that door open should they not end up going draft someone or bring in a big time free agent. So he's my name, my haymaker name from that team.
My worry about the Commanders is, there's so much hype from the first 7 weeks. And then you look back, let's say we're 2 or 3 years down the road. We're like, remember all that excitement we had? And then you look at the fantasy options from the rest of the team. You go like, every year there was maybe one other guy outside of Jayden. It's kind of like with Lamar. You look back at all of those years. You look back at the 2 MVP years, and you're like, Andrews was the dude. And then Flowers has been good, but like outside of that, we've just been throwing darts at every single year at the other players, the Aguilars or the Batemans or whoever's, and it's never really worked out. And obviously a very similar player and skill set. That's what I think about with the team, like in Dynasty over the years. I want to buy in, but I wonder if I'm going to be looking back a year or 2 from now. I'm like, who's the dude? Because
there's just, this team can only sustain one guy.
Yes.
I mean, historically, right? When you just look at the elite rushing quarterbacks, that's generally the case. And I think Daniels is in that group, that Lamar-esque type runner, where it's like, if he has his games as a runner, he's maybe supporting one other guy and not 2, and it's going to be unlikely that happens on a week in and week out basis. So I think, to your point, I think that does make a lot of sense.
All right, I'm going to close this with, which quarterbacks would you rather have in Dynasty over Jayden Daniels? So name the guys that you'd want over him.
Okay.
Would you rather?
Oh, you just want?
I'll name.
Oh, are you going to give me the names?
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'll take Lamar still.
Okay.
I think Lamar.
Josh Allen.
I'm still going to take Josh Allen.
I will take Josh Allen.
All right. Jalen Hurts. I'm with you guys so far. Betz has some worries.
I'm still going to take Jalen.
I think this is right where it is. I think I would take Hurts, but I'm pretty sure Daniels is going to be my next name.
Okay. And the last one, I think, is right here. Joe Burrow or Jayden Daniels.
Daniels.
Yeah, I'm fine going Daniels there.
Okay, so we're saying he's about quarterback 3 or quarterback 4 in startups right now.
Yep, he's been great.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Good, like this, we already did the rant of like, this isn't Stroud. This is a mobile quarterback who can put up prolific passing games.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Dynasty Podcast. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, whether you're at Jack in the Box or with your family. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.